I will say, MTM did have a requirement that I have not seen yet from any other NEMT brokers.
What was that?
Hey guys, welcome back to NEMT Van Talks. I'm Jasmine.
And I'm Monica.
And we're the owners of an NEMT business based here in California. So have you heard all of the talk that's going around right now? Well, I have some news for you if you haven't. MTM acquired Access2Care. And if you don't know who MTM is or Access2Care, I highly suggest that you Google it. But I am going to share something with you. Both of these organizations are NEMT brokers. So they manage NEMT services across many states. So this is a really big deal for our NEMT community. And I think it's important for you to stay informed because this acquisition can affect your business.
So you're probably wondering, why are we bringing this news to you? Why do we want to share this news with you? Well, it's because as NEMT providers, you want to stay informed. You want to stay ahead of the game. You need to know how this could potentially affect your business, your contracts that you have in place, and your overall operations, right? Like, you need to know this. So we're going to talk about it.
So the first thing that I think about with this change, and I'll be very honest because you guys know we are NEMT business owners ourselves. We've seen these types of changes before. We've been in the middle of these changes before. So when we speak to you today, we are speaking from experience.
Absolutely.
So with this new acquisition, the first thing that I think about, Monica, is the contracts.
Yes.
The contracts that NEMT providers currently have with Access2Care. We work with Access2Care. And Access2Care has been a great organization to work with. Actually, I'm sad to see that they're selling. But you know what? We've also worked with MTM as well. So these are really two well-known NEMT brokers. And I have to say, they're probably at the top of our list as far as having a pleasant experience in working with both of them. So this acquisition doesn't scare me at all.
But did you see it coming though? Because I didn't. I didn't see this one like at all. I wasn't prepared for this change.
Yeah, I have to say, I mean, we received an email saying that this change is gonna be in full effect. Was it January?
It's January. Yeah, so they're still in the process of doing all the litigations and behind the scenes stuff and all of that stuff. But we did receive notice by it via email, just saying like, hey, this is what you should expect. Currently, there's not anything that will affect your operations. But however, we know in the past when this has happened, you sign another contract. You need to be prepared for that. Like, what will that new existing contract look like? Will there be any changes from your old contract that you have in place? So you have to just get prepared for those things.
The contract is definitely one that stands out. And as soon as we got our email, we did go back and thoroughly review our existing contract with Access2Care just to make sure that there's no loose screws there, that we have everything in place that we need, right? So, you know, as far as billing, as far as the overall obligations of the contract, to make sure that everything was set up right on our end so that we can prepare for this new change. But like you said, when, you know, the acquisition does fully take place, you are going to get a call or an email from MTM asking to, hey, we need you to sign another contract. But one of the key things that I think about is that they always want to renegotiate rates. So as NEMT providers, you need to be prepared for that. Right now in this moment, you should be looking at your overall operational cost, making sure, okay, well, with Access2Care, this is how much I was being compensated for my trips. And you need to think, okay, was this manageable? Was I able to cover my operational costs with the reimbursement rates that I was receiving from Access2Care? Because if your answer is no, then when MTM reaches out to you, you know that you need to ask for a little bit more.
Yeah. And then also too with rates too, you know, like certain contracts, their rate requirements change. So, you know, they may do the bucket system. So you need to know what if they come to you with this bucket system example. If they say from 0 to 3 miles, we'll pay you $1.85. But in your Access2Care contract, maybe you were just getting flat rate when it comes to mileage, maybe $1.85, $2 per mile, whatever the case. I'm just throwing out some numbers. And so you want to think about that as well before you immediately sign that new contract and not negotiate those new rates and how it may affect your overall operational costs as well. So
think about the cost of living, right? So maybe you signed your contract with Access2Care 5 years ago, right? And you still stuck in that 5-year bucket or rate reimbursement, and a lot has changed within these last 5 years, right? So quite naturally you would ask for an increase in rates with the transition to MTM. Now will MTM
honor those? Yeah,
right? I don't know, but it doesn't hurt to try, right? Another thing that I think about too is operationally, what could you expect, right, with this new transition? What is the trip volume going to look like? Is there going to be a decrease? Is there going to be an increase? Quite naturally, I mean, for here in California, we have always had MTM and Access2Care.
But with this merge, do you think that that means more providers?
Absolutely.
So even with that, quite naturally, one would, you know, think, well, if there are more providers, then that could be possibly a decrease in your trip volume, depending on your area, of course. Like that may not affect everyone, but if there are a lot of providers in a certain area and this merge is happening, then it could potentially reduce your trip volume.
I would hope that's not the case.
I know.
I would hope that with this merger that they have contracts and that they've actually looked over, you know, okay, we got X amount of providers here, we got X amount of providers over here. We need to get this contract, and this contract to keep these group of providers fed. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Right? Yeah. So, you know, that's a scary one. Yeah. And I guess, you know, we won't know what that's going to look like. You know what? It just made me think about it. We actually have a client that is also contracted with Access2Care. This particular client is making anywhere between $30,000 to $40,000 a month. However, within the last few weeks, her trip volume has decreased. Yes. So when I talked to her, the first thing I asked her, I said, well, you heard about this acquisition, right? And she said, yeah. And I said, well, you know what? It could potentially be because of this. Quite naturally, she's getting a little nervous, but prime example of why we always tell you guys to diversify your portfolio, because it's going to be important, because these type of acquisitions happen all the time within the NEMT industry. Look at Vail, right? So, you know, even with National Medtrans got bought out by Logisticare. Yeah. So this is something.
And that was our very first one we experienced. So it happens. It happens in this industry, and you definitely need to be prepared. But as you mentioned, like payments and how much, you know, this one provider is making, one of the things I can think about too is that you want to make sure that you are processing billing on time in a timely manner now with this. Not saying that Access2Care will not honor, you know, their contract and make sure that they're paying you in a timely manner, but I would just hate for you all to get put in a situation where the merge has happened, you submitted your billing at the last moment, and you're still waiting to be reimbursed. you just don't want to be in those challenging or difficult situations. So just make sure you stay on top of your billing.
And that's one of the reasons why we went back. You know, I mean, we jumped on it. Like, right when we got that email, we was like, okay, let's go back and look and make sure that everything is good, because you should be looking, revisiting, like, you know, when your invoices are due and some of the key things as it pertains to payments, because the last thing you want is for them to shut their doors and then you have to fight or go through different litigations just to be reimbursed for the services that you already did. So definitely look into that. Another thing that really stands out to me is there may be some changes in compliance. Right? You know what? I will say MTM did have a requirement that I have not seen yet from any other NEMT brokers.
What was that?
The random drug screening.
Random drug screening.
Right.
Yes.
So they had a requirement where you have to do random or enroll in a program, a random drug screening program. So that's a great example of something that you may have to incorporate into your operations to be compliant. Another thing is, for here in the state of California, for you to work with certain transportation brokers, you have to be registered with your state Medicaid, Medi-Cal program. I'm not sure if that was one of the requirements.
It wasn't before
from Access2Care, but I'm wondering
with this merge.
I think it was required from MTM. So it was.
Yeah, it was with MTM, but not Access2Care.
Right. So that's another thing. So, you know, if you are not registered with the state, depending on what state you're in, you may have to go through that process to be in compliance with what MTM business model is. So definitely you want to make sure that you have everything in alignment, because if you're not in compliance and with this transition, they're not going to give you any trips until you meet their requirements. So you definitely want to consider that. You want to be able to move quickly if you have to. And then, you know, service expectations. You know, that's another one. You know, you really got to think about, you know, what are the expectations of this Access2Care, right? What were the expectations there, and are the same expectations going to be carried over to the new partnership with MTM? So think about that as well. But I will say, if you are one of those NEMT providers like us that are hungry, you know, always looking for opportunity, this could be an exciting transition, especially if you're looking to expand your geographic reach. You know, MTM has been around for quite some time. And so, you know, you may be able to venture out in other surrounding areas where you did not operate, but now the opportunity is there because of this new partnership.
And I'll tell you too, most of the times when these mergers take place, that typically means that broker have obtained like a really large contract. And so they know, or they're expecting an increase in, you know, transportation services that they would need to fulfill. And so with that being said, when you say this opportunity will allow for you to expand your geographical area, then I think about that. I think about the opportunity, like you may be able to kind of, your trip volume may be able to increase if you're willing to expand your geographical area. To me, those can be pros, right? Like those are opportunities where you know that.
And financial stability, too.
This can be a great opportunity for your business. And so don't look at a merger as like, oh, this is a bad thing, because this could potentially be a great thing for your business.
Yeah, but I know, I mean, quite naturally, it would be scary, though. You know what I'm saying? Because you have to build new relationships and essentially start over again, you know. But, you know, let's go back to some of the cons. So one would be increased competition, because we talked about other providers, you know, moving into the area with this merger, because MTM probably already has their roster of providers. Pretty much beefing up your services, beefing up your technology. You know, that, I mean, yeah, that could be pressure for someone that hasn't really focused on efficiency, right? Because we do have a lot of smaller NEMT providers that, you know, they just go do their trips and that's it, but they don't really focus on technology, or even customer service, right? So I think that that's a big one.
And these are all of things that you really need to look at. Like, how are you currently operating your business with or without these things that we just mentioned? And if it's time for you to grow and expand and start to implement these various procedures, because it may be required with this new contract. So again, you want to think outside of the box. You want to go ahead and be ahead of what could potentially happen, or how things could potentially affect your day-to-day operation.
Right. And also adapting to new systems, right? So, you know, with Access2Care, you may have submitted billing in a different system, but now you're merging over with MTM. Billing may look a little different. So, you know, my best advice to you is, once you do fully transition over, before you start doing those trips, make sure that you have a good understanding of what the billing process is, and what that looks like. And we actually have a video that is, I think it's live on our channel right now, about, you know, preparing yourself before you actually go and do that first trip, understanding what the billing process looks like with any agency that you're working with. But another thing for me is, you're going to have to start building a relationship with, you know, your dispatchers, with your provider relations manager, the new ones over at MTM. Those same relationships that you once had with Access2Care are no longer be there.
That's a big one. Yeah. It can be hard. Like, you don't build that relationship, like they know you, right? And so now you have to establish new relationship with new people all over. That can be challenging, like, right?
And even with the new contract, don't just sign that contract. Read the contract. Read. I know some of you guys get excited, or maybe you don't like to read, so you just sign it on whatever.
I hope y'all reading them contracts. Don't just sign.
Definitely make sure you read it.
Y'all better read those contracts. Like, you need to know exactly what you're signing, because honestly, I read our contracts like thoroughly, and so you really need to know, like, what are you obligated to do with the note. Like, your contract literally explains everything to them. And Jasmine, on the other hand, as soon as somebody don't adhere to something within that contract, she was like, we need to review the contract again. Like, we need to hold them accountable, which is true. That's the reason why you really have those contracts in place, to hold both parties responsible for things that you all agreed upon, right? So your services that you're going to provide, and what they're going to provide as well. And so it is clearly outlined within your contract.
Yeah. And, you know, to leave you guys off with something, my best advice to you is to maintain the communication with Access2Care right now, with their liaisons, or with your provider relations manager, and with the dispatchers, like, because they are going to be the ones that are going to give you the tea and let you know exactly what's going on. So make sure you definitely stay connected to them.
And ask them too, like, if they can share with you how I should be preparing for this merger. Like, can you share with me anything that we should be expecting? Like, they'll tell you. If you have a good relationship with them, most of the time they'll give you some insight, you know.
And another thing is, check your emails.
Yes.
Check your emails. Some of y'all don't be checking y'all emails. So check your emails and make sure that you are looking for updates, because through this acquisition, I'm sure Access2Care is going to keep you updated on the progress or changes that are currently going on with this merger. So definitely check your email. Most importantly, join social media forums. We have an NEMT community group. It's called NEMT Community over on Facebook. I'll leave the link in the description. Stay connected through these open forums, and, you know, share what you're going through, because what you're going through, somebody else just may be going through the same thing. So hopefully us as a community, NEMT providers, we can all keep each other in the loop of what's going on. In the comments, let us know.
Yeah.
Let us know. Have you been through anything like this before? What is your best advice for our fellow NEMT providers? Drop it in the comments.
Yes.
And you know what? I'm excited for this change here in California. And we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to like, hit the subscribe button, and share this information, because we are a community of providers and we need each other. We gotta keep each other connected
and informed, right? If you know some information, you want to share this information, share with others. So if it's something that we don't know, drop that in the comments too. Like, let us know. Like, we providers too. Like, keep us informed as well.
All right, guys. Bye.